Hi, I'm Danny and these are my diecast disasters. In this video I will be using some parts from a cheap toy tractor to help turn this Hot Wheels 1970 SS Chevelle wagon into a post-apocalyptic Mad Max style pursuit vehicle. This model has been produced since 2009 and this is a 2018 Daredevil's version. It's a pretty cool car, I think, apart from the glow-in-the-dark front wheels, but I'm not sure how much use it would be in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The first step is to drill out the single rivet at the front of the car and take it apart. There are just 4 parts to this car. The small piece of tissue there I jammed in over the wheel to stop it rolling off of the turntable. This car has a really cool interior with some auto parts in the boot. I'm going to take the motor from this teed off model. A hole will have to be cut in the bonnet to fit the new motor. I roughly mark where it needs to be and then cut it out using my rotary tool and some files. Some struts are used from a random 4-wheel drive model base that I had lying around to raise the front and rear wheels. I make some little metal plates to cover the rough looking struts that I've glued on. A small nail is used to hammer some little rivets around the edges of the plates. I also added some putty plates on the rear. You can see how I make these in some of my other post-apocalyptic car videos. Some thin wire is wrapped around small lengths of sprue to make some shocks. Using a piece of aluminium tubing, I make a drive shaft. The rear housing holding the drive shaft in is made of putty. Another little steel plate is added at the front of the drive shaft. I make some little skulls out of epoxy putty. These are attached to the front and rear of the chassis. The paint is removed with a paint stripper and then the car body is cleaned up with a wire brush on my rotary tool. I attach the large mud guards from the toy tractor to the sides of the wagon. Using a straight burr on my rotary tool, I cut some gouges and dents into the body of the car. Next, a round burr is used to add some shallower dents and smooth out some of the deeper gouges that I made earlier. Now I add some little spikes to the front mud guards. You can see how I made these spikes in one of my other post-apocalyptic car videos. The spikes are attached using Tamiya putty. I dab a little bit of putty on the end of the spikes and then just stick them in place. Sometimes you might have to hold them there for a minute or so until the putty firms enough to stop them from tipping over. After 12 hours curing or so, this putty becomes quite strong and will hold the spikes in place well. Here is a quick look at the base and body of the car before they are painted. I added some small chains and fabricated a wee bull bar out of styrene and bent nails. The skull on the rear of the car has some little fangs and horns. They are now painted with a Molotow silver dollar rattle can. I found this to be a really good base paint for my rusty effects work, as it doesn't seem to get bothered by anything that you put on it once it has cured. Some rust effect paint is watered down to make a thick wash. Here is the car body after painting silver. It is now painted with the rust wash. After this is dried, I add 2 more layers of wash. I start with the dark wash, dabbing it on unevenly. Next, the lighter wash is applied in a similar manner. After this rusty paint job has dried, it is given 2 layers of Tamiya flat clear and left to cure for 24 hours. I want it to be a nice, strong surface to work on. The mudguards are masked off. Next, I paint the rusty car body with some chipping medium. It is given a decent coat of the chipping medium. Once the chipping medium has dried, the car is painted with a mixture of Tamiya sky blue and white acrylic paint. Here it is after painting blue. The masking tape is very carefully removed from the mudguards. I am particularly careful with the spiky front mudguards. To achieve the chipping effect, I first add some water to the blue paint layer. Now I take a little skewer and gently rub away at the paint to start it chipping. After a little while, the water will help soften the chipping medium and the paint will chip off easier. I must be quite gentle with the stick because I only want to chip the top blue layer of paint and make sure that I don't scratch the rusty paint layer underneath. This is why it is essential to have the rust layer well cured. I have sped up the footage here, but try to be patient when you do this effect, because after all the work you've put in to get to this point, it would be a real pity to scratch through the rust layer. So here is the car body after the blue paint has been chipped. The mudguards are now painted in this plate metal silver, which is somewhere between normal silver and gunmetal silver. A length of chain is added to hold up the rear mudguards. I slid a piece of paper under it so that I could paint it silver without harming the paint job on the body of the car. The dry rust wash is now applied. Next, a dark wash. Using my craft knife, I grind some powder from some sepia and orange tone pastels. The rust powder is applied to the mudguards using a small flat brush that I can use like a little shovel. I want it to look like the mudguards were harvested off of a very rusty old tractor. A very small amount of the powder is added here and there on the body of the car, particularly around the hole in the bonnet. When I am happy with my rust powder, I spray it with some Tamiya Flat Clear. Be very careful to spray it from a long distance away so that you don't blow off any of the rust powder that you've just spent all that time adding. Using a small brush, some dark tone wash is carefully applied to the details on the body of the car, like the lines in the doors and the bonnet. I only want to highlight the lines in the car, not paint dark wash all over my nice blue and rust paint job that I've spent a lot of time creating. To start the base, I paint over my silver Molotow layer with some dark rust wash. The skull's suspension and drive shaft are touched up with gunmetal silver. A dark wash is applied. The dry rust wash is applied. Some rust powder is added. After I'm happy with my rust powder, it is sealed with a coat of Tamiya Flat Clear. To begin the interior, it is airbrushed with a coat of Tamiya Desert Yellow. The steering wheel and belt in the boot are painted with Tamiya Semi-Gloss Black. The car parts are painted gunmetal silver. I realise that I've quite clumsily rubbed off some of the desert yellow paint, so I have to patch it up. The interior is finished with a mid-tone wash. There was a big dent in the top of the blower, which I don't think was meant to be there. Maybe somebody will tell me in the comments that it was meant to be there, but anyway, I filled it with Tamiya putty. After this had cured, I sanded it down and painted the motor with gunmetal silver. The details are painted in. The motor is finished with a dark wash. The wheels are from the toy tractor that I took the mudguards from. They look quite cool, I think, but unfortunately it was so cheap they don't actually have backs on them. I will have to rectify this. So here are some wee plastic rims harvested from a broken toy tank. These are drilled out and placed on the back of the large rear wheels, and then I used epoxy putty to fill the back of the wheels. Once this had cured, I airbrushed them with semi-gloss black. Here they are with the rims painted in gunmetal. The rims are given a couple of layers of rust wash. This is followed by a dark wash over the tyres. Here are our painted car body parts ready to be assembled. Before I add the wheels, I apply some more dark wash to some of the shaded areas. Some metallic weathering powders are applied. The wheels just press onto some axles that I cut out of some steel rod. I also used some aluminium tubing to make some little spaces. The motor is glued into place with a tiny amount of glue. Plenty of power for those big tractor tyres with that bad boy. A very small amount of rust powder is added here and there on the engine. So after quite a few steps, let's take a moment to be reminded of what we started with. A green Daredevil Chevelle wagon with some glow-in-the-dark front tyres. Not the worst car in the world, but not exactly a post-apocalyptic racer. So here it is transformed into a high-powered apocalyptic pursuit vehicle. The driver would have to stick his head right out of the window to see past this enormous motor, big enough to supply plenty of power to the huge tractor tyres on the back of the car. With a massive amount of ground clearance and traction, it should be a match for any off-road terrain. To finish the car, I chained some rusty old oil and fuel barrels to the roof. Let's grab the car off of the turntable and take a closer look. This was a really fun project to do, and I am quite pleased with how the chipping effect came out on the body of the car. It took me about a week to complete. Remember to just be quite patient if you're making a project like this yourself, as rushing some of the steps can mess them up and lead to a bit of disappointment and quite a lot of wasted time. A big welcome to all my new subscribers and a huge thanks for all of the awesome comments on my videos. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more post-apocalyptic builds and Matchbox and Hot Wheels restorations, please click like and subscribe. Thanks heaps for watching.